Hey Bears fans, I'm Juju Phillips, voice of the Bears.
And I'm Ian Shields, head football coach, Lenoir-Rhyne Bears.
Lenoir-Rhyne football has a proud tradition of football excellence, and we're excited for this 2014 season with new players, new coaches, and new expectations.
Join us Saturdays this fall and celebrate 50 years of football between the bricks as the Lenoir-Rhyne Bears go in search of our 4th straight South Atlantic Conference championship.
Come watch the Bears attack and take charge in 2014.
Touchdown, Lenoir-Rhyne.
You're watching the Lenoir-Rhyne Bears Football Weekly Press Luncheon with head football coach Ian Shields.
Reflecting back to last week, it was a good win for our program against Tusculum. That's a talented football team we played. I'd like to start by thanking our fans. We had close to 8,000 people there for our home for that game. Family weekend. We had our canned food drive, and we did well in that endeavor as well. And that's going to help a lot of youth in the Hickory community, and we'll make sure we get that in the right hands. But a wonderful crowd. It's always nice to be back between the bricks, as we were. Have a huge crowd, a ton of support from our fans. There's not better fans in Division II football than ours. So that's special. Our players really enjoy being at home and playing in front of their family and friends. So, it's a good win for us. Like I said, that game was closer than the score indicated. Certainly, we had our hands full, particularly early going in the first half. We started slow, drove down the length of the field on the opening possession. They had a defensive player. Their defensive tackle made a tremendous play, stripping Chris Robinson of the ball going in to score. I thought it was a real key moment in the game right there. We talk about sudden change in our defense. Not giving in to the momentum of the game and stealing momentum back. And certainly enough, Chris Green breaks through the line of scrimmage, and we get a safety right there, first snap of the game defensively, and that was a big point in the game because it flipped the field as well at the same time with them having to kick off after a safety and creating field position that way. So a lot of hidden things in that football game, and a lot of guys in every phase of the game playing well. I think in the kicking game, it doesn't get mentioned. I thought we did extraordinarily well in the kicking game. Justin Powell hit a big field goal, 47, I think it was a 47, 48-yard field goal at a critical moment in that game. That's going to be huge going forward for his confidence. We had a great, our short snappers and long snappers, no one even knows their names. Drayton Queen and Stu Sherrill, they've been perfect on the season, knock on wood. But they're exceptional in what they do and don't get enough credit because none of that stuff starts without them. And then Mikey to Stevens, we're 9th in the nation in net punting right now. So we're right at 40 yards. We've given up 1 return yard in the punting game all season, which is phenomenal. We're giving up 0.25 yards per return, I believe. So there's a lot of things going unnoticed there that are great. We have a few other issues we need to get fixed. Our backup punt returner fumbled the ball at the end of the game. There's things in coverage we can do better in our kickoff team. But by and large, we're playing pretty well in the special teams phase. And Coach Mayor Shadahari, our special teams coordinator, also coaches our safeties, puts an extraordinary amount of work into it and does a super job with our kicking game. Defensively, I think that's really where our team success starts is with our defense. And our defense sets the tone for this football team, and it starts up front. And I think we played our most complete game up front in the defensive line. Blake Baker was the sack defensive player of the week last week, was disruptive all over the field, had some sacks, tackles for losses. He blocked the kick, going back to the kicking game. Blake's a force to be reckoned with. There's a reason he's an All-American. He certainly is one. Chris Green is a force inside as well. And those two have played at an exceptionally high level the last 2 weeks. But I think we also saw an emergence of Lindre Sparrow and Placid Ajoku on the edges last week. I think Lindre played his best game. Placid, you saw, got in and have a sack and had a presence as a pass rusher. And he has a ton of ability off the edge. And that was great to see. Lindre was really a force out there, and that was a positive for us. Both Bots brothers are playing well, and we come to expect that. Joe and O'Neill on the corners, again, exceptional effort, particularly considering what they were trying to do to us. The Houston kid's a great player for Tusculum. I think one of the better players we've seen this year, and hopefully do see all year. But to hold him well under, what he typically gets, and certainly what he had the week before he played us. Yeah, I mean, he had 17 catches the game before they played us in one game. So we held him, I believe, to 7 catches. Not a lot of yards after catch, which was a concern because he was a dangerous football player. So. All that was good. We, for the most part, kept the quarterback in check with his legs. He did break one for 20-some yards, but by and large, we got Pendergrass down and had a pass rush and executed the game plan well. Again, you hold a college football opponent to under 300 yards total offense and less than 10 points. You're doing some spectacular things defensively. Chris Schaefer again played well in the secondary, as did Marcus Kincaid. Chris Schaefer won our Ronnie Lott Heavy Hitter Award. That could have gone to a few other guys, but he had a big hit and a few others as well. And he is a physical presence back there at State. He's big, fast, and aggressive. So that's a good combination back there. Offensively, I think it started, aside from the turnover, which is never excusable, played very well. Finished the day with over 600 yards offense, over 480 yards rushing. So there's a lot of good things going on. I thought Miles Freeman in particular played his best game of the season. He really operated at a high level, reading, optioning, pitching the ball, managing the game. He had the right voice on the sideline when there were things not going well. He knew what the problem was. He knew how to fix it, and had the right ideas on the sideline with the guys, and he's a leader for us. He's a leader between the lines and on the sideline as well. So he's really playing well, and you'd expect that from a senior quarterback. Gerard Spears continues to play at a high level. I thought James Phillips played a solid game, and James is kind of one of the unsung heroes of our offense. He's rarely wrong. He's always right. He's kind of a Mr. Fix-It guy. He's a very dependable player. And then what can you say about Chris Robinson? Chris, in Ike Whitaker's absence, Chris Robinson has really stepped up. He had nearly 200 yards rushing on 20 carries. He's close to 7.5, 8 yards a carry, whatever it was. He's exceptional with the ball in his hands. He's improving without the ball in his hands. But he's dangerous. When you can see if he breaks past that second level of the defense, he's a threat to run through the third level of the defense. He has speed to burn, and he, as a fullback, that's a nice weapon to have right there. Up front, I think I can sing about each one of our offensive linemen, but they're playing well up front. They're doing a nice job and coming off the ball. And early on, it was tough sledding against Tusculum. They were huge up front, and we weren't getting a lot of movement early on. But as the game wore on, in our style of play, I liken it to boxing. You keep throwing enough body blows, and there's a cumulative effect eventually when you get to the second half and into the fourth quarter. So I think that's where you saw that tide turn possibly in that contest. But again, a lot of good things in every phase of the game. It wasn't a perfect game. It never is. You go back to the tape, and there's things we'd certainly like to do better and things we'd like to coach better. But that was a talented team, and I was proud of how we came back after halftime in that second half and established the way we'd like to play. Looking forward to Brevard, and we need to look forward because most of the stuff that just happened against Tusculum does not carry forward to this week. Matter of fact, defensively, you just throw it all out the window. Last week we were talking about rushing the passer and all these coverage schemes and all this, and you just throw that all out and you get ready to face something eerily similar to what we do offensively in Brevard. Coach Hamilton does a tremendous job there. They're getting after everybody offensively. Whether it was Western Carolina, Liberty, they're playing 2 Division I teams to start the season off. That's tough sledding, but they performed well offensively. And they have a lot of experience. We'll start with Coach Hamilton. He's been there and done that, obviously, for a long time. But you look at their quarterback is operating exceptionally. Their fullback is a physical presence. He's a senior. He's an Air Force Academy transfer. He's 230 pounds. He's a load. We're going to make sure we do our best to limit the damage he does. He's the bell cow for their offense. I believe he had 38 carries for over 200 yards last week. That's a lot of work for one young man. I might have to call, child social services for endangering him or something, see if we can see if we can't let him play. But he's a presence. He's a heck of a player, and their slot backs are playing well. The Jeter kid has tremendous speed. He's effective on the perimeter and all over the field. So we'll have our hand. It's a tremendous challenge for us defensively, going against a flex bone offense. Certainly, we hope to be able to give a good look and replicate that with our scout team. Our guys should be able to give them a better look than most people can give in the course of this week. So that's to our advantage. On the flip side of that, to their defense's advantage, right? Because sometimes it looks like you're looking in a mirror. We basically have the same foundations in place offensively. It's just how we choose to complement our offense and how they choose to complement the base of their offense is where some of the differences may lay. But it's a formidable challenge. They're rushing for over 365 yards a game, I believe, and they've been doing it against a really tough competition and against a heck of a schedule at the start of their season here in the first 4 games. So that record is misleading. They had chances to beat Carson Newman. They had an opportunity certainly to beat North Greenville, and then Western Carolina and Liberty. You just look at the stats and you watch the tape. They're playing well. They're playing well. So I think it's a very good team. I think an exceptionally well coached team. They don't make many mistakes. They're penalty free for the most part. I believe the 2 of us are the 2 least penalized team in the conference right now. And you'll see they're sound, So for us to come out top, we'll have to play well and play clean. And defensively, we'll have to play assignment football and make sure we have every phase of the triple option accounted for. And play hard and play a great effort and get off blocks and tackle, do the things that fundamentally sound teams do. There's no magic pill you can swallow and attack this offense of Brevard, the Tornadoes. They do a heck of a job. With that, I'll take any questions either regarding last week's Tusculum game or Brevard this upcoming weekend.
How much of is our offensive mindset that when we get into the third quarter after halftime, if we've got a 2-score lead, that we can get to the point to where we're just keeping teams off the field offensively? I mean, with the type of offense we run, if we're not snapping that ball till 10 seconds or less in the game clock, I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking, that should give us a huge advantage because you might be able to keep an opposing team to 3 or 4 possessions in the whole half. Can you expound on that? Is that something that we think about?
It is. There's no doubt. We tell our players, the scoreboard's a lie. Ignore the scoreboard. Don't even look at it. That's our coach's obligation. When we get up by a couple touchdowns, if we're fortunate enough to, then we need to pay attention, and we do. We're a no huddle team, but that doesn't mean we're a hurry up team. There's a big difference there, and as far as styles of play. We can spin it any way we need to spin it or choose to spin it. But it is to our advantage running the style of play we have, having a lead, obviously. Some would argue to our detriment if it's on the backside, if you're on the other side of that coin and you're down 2 or 3 scores. I don't necessarily subscribe to that because I'm part of it when we're still a big play offense. I think everybody can see that, and we can score in a hurry, and I think everybody can see that. And I'm probably remiss not mentioning the play we're getting out of Miles throwing the ball and our receivers catching the ball, which is a dimension that is really, I think, one of the more pivotal plays in that contest last Saturday against Tusculum was, Vic Brandon catching the hitch route and going 82 yards for a touchdown. I mean, that's an 82-yard drive in one play. So we're not going to try and trip and take a knee there, obviously, and let the clock go. We're just going to go score a touchdown. But that was a big play. That was a turning point in that game, and I think that our passing efficiency rating, like I said, we're never going to be prolific throwing a football, but we can be efficient. Right now, we're in the top 10 of the nation in passing efficiency after 4 games. So to be able to do that is great, and we're one of the few teams in the country that hasn't given up a sack all season. So we're not getting tackled for losses. We're doing the things that good teams are supposed to do, not beat themselves. But you're right. The ball control is what we do is in our favor. Now, this week, it's in both teams' favor. So it's going to be a test of which defense can get off the field. And obviously, we hope it's ours because the possessions, when you're playing a flex bone team or when we are a flex bone team, the possessions are they're sacred. You know, you might only get 9 or 10 an entire game, and the clock's going to be running a lot. It'll probably be a pretty short contest. You know, so I know it's on TV, but you know, if they're getting commercials, then there'll be a lot of commercial breaks. If the game can go fast. You know, when you've got two teams that are committed to run the football like we both are.
Coach, I'm sure you're addressing the positives about Brevard to your players going into this game, but you're 4-0, they're 0-4. Is there a tendency on the players' part, the temptation to take this team lightly?
I don't believe so, and we try to avoid any of those temptations and focus. For one, we're focused on the schemes that they employ on every phase of the game, all 3 phases. And you can turn the tape on, and you can tell the quality of the opponents they've played and their performances against those. And they could be sitting there at 2-2 and have 2 of their losses to 1 AA teams. So this is an improved Brevard team from the last 2 years. They're a veteran group offensively. All those skill guys are seniors. They've all played. I think their offensive line is tremendously improved from a year ago. Watching them, they're playing hard. They're playing well, and it's dangerous because if the wrong mentality sits in our camp, we have to fight like heck to make sure it doesn't. Because if you look past anything in the SAC conference, then someone's going to get you. And Brevard's good, and they're well coached, and they're going to have a good plan for us. So we need to make sure that we go up there for their homecoming. We go up there and make sure we put our best foot forward and play our style of football, regardless of any team, and throw out all the records. We don't care. The truth be told, they're all nameless, faceless opponents for us, and we're going to try to play to the best of our standards.
When you're playing a team that's so similar offensively, does that put an extra emphasis on special teams, or does that make field position that much more important?
Well, it does. The field position is critical. The turnover battle is critical. Because you don't want to give a team like Brevard a short field, obviously, and they don't want to give us one. Any returns that we can have that can flip the field were huge. Just going back to last week's games, we flipped the field 4 times in the punt game with Mikey DeStevens. He's punting the ball tremendously well, and that's really great to see because he's got a beautiful swing and he hits the ball great and he's clean, and it's great to see it translate to on Saturday nights or afternoons. So the kicking game is huge. It's one of our keys to victory. We preach and we work hard. If anyone comes to our practice, you see how much time we devote to the kicking game, and it certainly will be a factor, as will those possessions we talked about. You know, so you want to start with as short a field as possible. This game has been, since Rutgers played Princeton, the first college football game. This game is about field position, and it always has been, always will be.
Looking back at the Tusculum game, you said the score wasn't indicative of the game. If you look back 2 weeks ago, the score were very similar both weeks, and that score was kind of indicative of the game. How do you, as a coach, when you look back and you look at the stats and things, compare those two and move forward? Because from my point of view, I would have never thought, looking at the box score, we had 480 yards rushing on Saturday by the way the game went.
Yeah, well, you know, I think here we've how do I phrase this correctly? Recently, we've won a lot of football games here and played a lot of good football in our recent history here at Lenoir. I think we can get spoiled looking at our success and take some things for granted. We're playing some pretty good football teams. We just happen to play pretty well and end up wearing a couple teams down possibly in the second half. To our players' credits. They believe in our system. We have a good system. They're believing in it, and we have good players executing the system. I don't think in the first half of our last game against Tusculum, we were playing our best football in any phase of the game. I won't say we were emotionally flat. We weren't that, but we weren't maybe as detailed or precise or on the edge as we'd like to be to start a contest. And maybe that was because we opened week play against Wingate, and we were on emotional high. And it's hard to be right there on the edge every Saturday afternoon you play. But these games, and we keep emphasizing, these games are precious. You're only guaranteed 11. We aspire to play more. But in a college football player's career, they go by so fast. And you have to take advantage of every rep and every play. every series, every game, and because before you know it, you wake up and you're in your 40s or whatever. So our guys. I tell you this much: our guys love to play football. They love to play. They're passionate about the game, and I think you can see that. I just think we played a little better in the second half. We did the first half.
And it's kind of been talked about moving forward to Brevard. Coaches Goldsmith and Houston used to always talk that the Brevard game was the one on the schedule every year that was maybe scared them the most because it's like you said, looking in a mirror. In the past couple of years, the score hasn't been indicative of the type of game. They probably get more out of their kids than anybody in the conference. How do you let the other kids keep the mindset of what's on the table and how important it is and see how they go?
Well, I think we have some tremendous leadership internally in our locker room. I think the guys that have been here, you talk about Blake Baker, the Botts brothers. You talk, Joe Ray, who's only a junior but a leader. Ike. We have some veteran guys in our room that know what we're up against, particularly on the defensive side of the football. And it is if you ask any defensive coach in the country, they don't want to play against this style of play. It's a pain. Quite frankly, that's the reason we do it. Because it's hard to prepare for. And you get 2 days in pads in the week, and they're working on 365 days a year. So advantage offense typically. Now we have the added advantage, unlike most teams in the country, where we run a similar style of play and our guys are used to seeing that type of offense. Not necessarily the exact same offense, there are differences, but at least it's not completely foreign to us. So I think that will help us, as it will help them. So that's why you talk about the previous coaches. That's why it's a challenge, because we know that they know, and they know that we know, and we both know. And you're trying to like figure it all out, and that's the challenge. So that's why coaches lose hair and don't sleep.
Talk a little bit about the offensive line. You replaced 3 players from last year's line. And they've played well. In the first couple of games, they're playing well individually, but they seem to be playing well as a group. They seem to have come together as a group now.
Well, that's important. That's a good point. We did lose 3 starters off a pretty dang good offensive line from a season ago, and some good players up front. I think we've replaced them. Joe Ray was a fixture over there, obviously, but Matt Villani's came in and stepped right in, and is playing well, and he's certainly a physical presence. You just look at him and you can see that. You watch him and you can see that. And then Dale Howard's done a tremendous job at transitioning at center, who was was a scout D lineman basically a year ago. But he's a physical presence at center. And Chris Phillips behind him is no slouch either. Both those guys can play, and they're really both ones in our mind. And then Jimmy Bair is improved from where he was out a year ago. Jimmy's consistent, he's right, he's tough, he's physical, and he's getting everything he has and making the most of his senior year. And then Jacob Slagle, who played in the playoffs a year ago, has become a fixture over at left tackle. And if we can just keep him from going downfield on our play action passes, a couple times. He does that once a game for some reason. He just is really aggressive, So. But all joking aside, there is a synergy there, and it is important for those 5 guys. Those 5 guys got to play as one up front. And Coach Seamy's done a tremendous job with a bunch of guys that hadn't played together, molding them and getting them to play together. And I think nothing happens offensively unless those guys are operating at a high level. And for us offensively, it starts on both sides of the ball. It starts with the defensive line, it starts on that side of the ball, and on the offensive line, it starts on that side of the ball, and everyone else gets to play and have fun, and those guys do all the hard work.
Coach, Blair Cody again. Let me change gears on you. I was just looking at the handout today, and I just saw that we're 23-2 in our last 25 conference games. I just think that's amazing. I appreciate your team's efforts this year, and keeping those on the 23 side as opposed to the 2 side. But changing gears on you from the game this week and the game last week, we've had 2 home games this year. How do you feel at this point in the season about our recruiting process? Are we, and you don't have to get into specifics with respect to young men, but are we getting kids here and the young men that we're looking at and we'd like to have? Are we being able to get them on campus, letting them see some of the great things that we're doing and getting their families here?
Well, I believe we certainly have in our 2 home opportunities this year, particularly this last Saturday. We had, when I spoke to the recruits and their families before the game, we had over 70 people in the room. So we're getting a lot of people to the game, and we have a great product to sell. I think that's part of the advantage of having this the winning history on our side and the reputation of Lenoir-Rhyne academically. That's a pretty potent combination. And then you factor in we're in Hickory, and I think we have the best town in the conference to recruit to. So there's a lot of great things happening right now, and none of it happens without the support of our administration. Who's really made it all possible. That's how this whole thing got started. With that, so we have great support from Dr. Powell, from Neil, all the way through and through the community, and that's why this is a cumulative effort. Everyone has a hand in it, our fans included. So we have a special product. It's not hard to sell recruits on that. They come to a Saturday night game like last Saturday, and they see the product we're putting on the field. They already know about the academic reputation of Lenoir-Rhyne. If they don't, they're finding out quickly. And I think we present a class operation in every phase, and at least we aspire to. And that'll continue forward. I think going back to last year's class, obviously we got hired late and scrambled it, and I think we put a pretty dang good class together. I think there's some exceptional players that are redshirting right now, and a couple of true freshmen they're getting a couple kicks at the can now. So there's some exciting talent in that group. I think this next class will be even stronger because we'll be able to fully vet it one whole recruiting class. So excited about our recruiting going forward, and obviously you need the chickens to make the chicken salad. So we got to keep recruiting well because you don't win those games. It's not coaching. It's good players. It's good players playing well, and that's how you win football games.
Maybe you had an extra signaler on the sideline to tell Slagle you got to stay here when those plays are called in. But is there any concern with the number of times that, especially Gerard and Miles, are losing their helmet? Is that an equipment issue? I mean, I know you want the ones on the field as much as possible.
We talked about, particularly Gerard's been problematic. When we talked about switching his helmet out and seeing if we can find a better fit. Typically the guys that are losing the helmets are guys with a lot of hair, and that's not Gerard's problem at all. So he has it cut pretty close. So we looked at getting another helmet possibly, but some of us they're taking some shots, and a couple where they're getting ripped off, which isn't legal. But when it comes off, they got to go out for a play. You saw that happen with obviously Miles as well on the reverse pass he caught. It was a heck of a hit. Something's going to fall out. I'm glad it wasn't his teeth or his eyeball or something. It's just a helmet. So, and then later, some other games just got ripped off. So, some of it's just the nature. It's a collision sport, not a contact sport. And then some of it is we got to check and make sure we got them fitted exactly right and maybe in the right helmet.
Was that something you talked to the officiating crew with? I mean, I know from the defensive side they probably, or your side actually, talked to them about defensive holding to make sure that your linemen aren't getting held. Is that something you talked to them about?
We talk at length, and I think I'll say this: when I was at the Division I level, and when I was at West Point, we had the ACC officials every week, and that's about as good as you're going to get at the Division I level. And I think our South Atlantic Conference officials do a tremendous job. I don't think they over officiate. I think they do a super job. That being said, there's no perfect official, and there's no perfect coach. We're going to make some bad calls. There's no perfect player. A guy's going to miss a block and miss a tackle. Occasionally, a ref's going to get one wrong too. I try and point that out to the best of my ability when they miss them. So, but I think they have jobs to do, and I think they do by and large a phenomenal job. And like I said, we have two teams with Brevard and us this Saturday that are, like I said, two of the least penalized teams in the conference. It'll be a good, clean, hard-fought football game. All right, with that being said, thank you everyone for your support. Thank Bear Nation for, again, our attendance last Saturday. That was great. We'll be back at home following the Brevard game the following week for homecoming. We expect a sellout crowd, over 8,000, close to 9,000 there, friends, family, everybody out there when we get back here between the bricks, up in 2 weeks. But we're looking forward, obviously, to Brevard. It's not far to travel up there. Let's get over there, Bear Nation, and show them how we do it.
Go Bears.